Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Hello and welcome to New Cyber Frontier. This is Abe Thompson, your co-host here on the preeminent cybersecurity broadcast in the entire world. I presume so, because Chris Gorog has done some great work here to get us here. I'm coming to you from the Colorado Springs studios here at SecureSet Academy here in Colorado Springs. I have the distinct privilege today of being with a fellow veteran and a good friend. Today we have on the program the Director of Cybersecurity Programs at the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and EDC, Mr. Vinnie Persichetti. Good morning, my friend. How are you, bud?
Hey, good morning, Abe. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's a delight. So you've been up to quite a bit. I'm biased because I love Colorado Springs here, but you've really done some great things already on our chamber. I think that the establishment of your position was a brilliant move on behalf of the chamber. So how'd you get here, and what are you up to these days?
Sure, thanks. So I've been with the chamber a little over a year and a half now. Prior to that, as you mentioned, a veteran, retired Air Force, spent 30 years on active duty working in communications, and retired near the end of 17 as a Chief Master Sergeant out of Peterson Air Force Base.
Excellent.
Shortly thereafter, I joined the chamber in a new position, their Director of Cybersecurity Programs, and that position was created as a result of obtaining a grant from the DoD's Office of Economic Adjustment. That grant was awarded to Pikes Peak Community College, and they partnered with the chamber as a subrecipient to execute the terms of that grant. And in phase one, we were focused over the last little over a year plus, we were focused on identifying what that cybersecurity ecosystem of Colorado Springs looked like, what type of resources we had here from an industry standpoint, academia, professional organizations, to see what type of initiatives were happening across town, and develop a strategic plan as to how we pull all of that together and really grow with a common goal to develop this community and really bring some recognition to Colorado Springs for the cybersecurity assets and resources that we have here.
Sure enough, what jazzed you, got you excited about this position? As you were thinking about transition, obviously you made a great step, which is usually pretty tough for us veterans initially. It's a culture change. What was it that truly attracted you to this idea of Cybersecurity Programs Director?
Well, being that the Chamber and EDC is a nonprofit, that was something that truly attracted me to the position. The opportunity to work with a community and not really be in a competitive role. So I'm not trying to put advance one company over another. I'm not trying to necessarily sell a product or represent a cybersecurity tool, if you will. It's about being engaged and involved with this cybersecurity ecosystem of Colorado Springs, with the community, and really getting to know the companies, the academic side, and really working to advance and grow that industry and bring some attention to the great work that's being done here locally.
Well, what a great flow too from being a public servant, the majority of your adult life, and to be able to continue sort of that mode where it's truly about a cause, and building and growing rather than simply sort of a profit-bearing venture. Obviously, that's a good part of America too, sort of the capitalism and the ability to build and take care of one another. But we also need people that can facilitate the American way of life in a nonprofit role like you have, and I appreciate that definitely. So, what did you do specifically in the Air Force that kind of prepped you for this?
So my background in the Air Force, communications,
Okay.
which in the Army they refer to as signals, cyber related.
Yeah.
I'm the first to admit I do not have a technical background in
Sure.
communications. Most of the work that I had done was, other than some CSA, client support technician type roles, tearing computers apart, which was great. I was more in an oversight position, managing teams who were managing networks.
Sure.
So it's more of the program management side of communications, which has helped tremendously in the current role that I'm in, overseeing this grant and looking to further specific initiatives with a strategic focus on the community.
Let's take a quick break and go hear from our sponsor.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
And we're back with the new Cyber Frontier. Our guest today is the Director of Cybersecurity Programs with the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and the EDC. Vince, you were just kind of talking about your background and how, though unique and not necessarily a traditional cyber role, it's really set you up to effectively manage programs and have vision to move the cybersecurity initiative. You mentioned a great word, which I love to reiterate very often, especially in Colorado Springs, and that's this idea of the Colorado Springs Cybersecurity Ecosystem. Talk a little bit more about that ecosystem here in Colorado Springs.
Sure. So I think, looking back a few years as the community began to come together around cybersecurity, we already had some very strong resources, mainly focused on the military installations and those military missions that were in place. What we lacked, I believe, was kind of that common vision of how to tie all of those resources together. Instead of working in stovepipes, bring them together so that we're all focused on a common goal of advancing the city's cybersecurity posture, if you will.
Yeah.
So, honestly, it's been incredible over the past year being able to work with a lot of those companies. Some of the research that we had accomplished unearthed that we have over 125 different companies in Colorado Springs that are focused in cybersecurity in some form or fashion. Not all of those are pure play cybersecurity companies. A lot of them are diversified. Cybersecurity is one piece of what they offer. We have over 3,000 cybersecurity workers in this town. An average annual salary of about $104,000. It's no secret that this is a very lucrative career field to get into, and we are looking. Colorado Springs, you don't really have to sell it. It's a beautiful place. It's
Here.
It's repeatedly in the top 2 to 3 of best places to live. So we want to expose this ecosystem to let folks know if this is something that they want to do. Colorado Springs is a great place to either relocate or expand or grow your business.
Now, undoubtedly, with 15,000 or so folks following this podcast, there are folks out there that may have ties to their city leadership or even to the economic development in their local areas. What would you say, maybe to inspire some of these other cities that would aspire to grow in their technological base, particularly in cybersecurity, based on successes you've seen here?
That's a great question, Abe. I would say a couple of things. First off, having a role within the Chamber of Commerce focused on cybersecurity is not something that you see in many cities.
Right.
I've only come across maybe one or two others that have a permanent position like that. We launched a website as a result of the research that we've done over the past year. It's ColoradoSpringsCybersecurity.com. That website is meant to represent a lot of those resources that we have here in the city. We host a Cybersecurity First Friday event, the first Friday of every month. And that is not for businesses to come learn about cybersecurity, because we have events like that. That is for the cybersecurity community to come together, to network and socialize, to bond, and to grow. So it's something that we started near the end of last summer of 2018. And I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 70 participants in the first one. This past month, we held it at Jack Quinn's Irish Pub, and we had about 130 people in attendance. So it's definitely grown in popularity and participation. We're lucky to have a permanent sponsor in Murray Security Services that helps make this event possible. And then we look to add a co-sponsor every month to help present information. We do have a small formal portion so that we can expose that cybersecurity community to some of the businesses that are operating in town and some of the interesting work that's happening in cybersecurity. And so it's become something that's quite popular.
And they can also get, if I'm not mistaken, CEU credit for some of those lectures?
Yes, thanks to Sean Murray at Murray Security Services. He's now able to offer CEUs to those cybersecurity workers who come out for the First Friday event.
Excellent. It's clearly, I mean, my students here at SecureSet participate. I love the way that the community comes around them at that event and invests in them and mentors them, and it provides such a great extended learning opportunity. And further, I love when we talk about ecosystems, so much of it is that idea of community, and I think that First Fridays really crystallizes that. And so I appreciate that you guys carry that banner, and I love what happens there. I love to watch. In fact, one of your great troubles that I see is, keeping folks focused, and keeping it down because they're so excited about fellowshipping that they just want to get into the business of cybersecurity. They enjoy the speakers, but they're also excited to see one another and have community around like-minded people. So
absolutely, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. You've really got something going there. So let's get focused more on the grant and sort of this ongoing study and some of the successes you've had. So talk to me about, first of all, the methodology you put in place to kind of get this all going. And it was a pretty citywide effort, as I recall.
Certainly. So initially with the first phase of the grant, and we're about to start on phase 2, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
But initially in phase 1, we partnered with an analytic research firm out of Washington, D.C. by the name of Simon Everett. They came into town and helped us really take stock of what we had in Colorado Springs as far as those companies, those resources that I've mentioned. They were instrumental in helping us really form an overall picture of what the cybersecurity industry of Colorado Springs looked like. Then in turn, they turned around and compared us to other cybersecurity hubs around the country to see how we matched up and help us identify where those gaps were that we needed to grow. Some of those cities that they compared us to were San Antonio, certainly a huge Air Force presence there in cybersecurity, Augusta, Georgia, with a large Army presence in cybersecurity, New York City with a financial sector, Austin, Texas with the burgeoning IT sector, and internationally they even compared us to Tel Aviv in Israel, which has some interesting advancements in cybersecurity happening. So after really forming that picture of how we compared to these other cities, and I'll be honest with you, we matched up pretty well. We certainly weren't at the top, but we matched up pretty well without a whole lot of focused effort at that point.
True.
So that in turn led to the development of our strategic plan, which has 15 specific actions that we can address across the community to really grow and attain national attention as a hub for cybersecurity. Moving into phase 2, which we're about to launch within the next couple of weeks, around mid-May, we are looking to take that strategic plan and focus certain elements which relate to our DoD assets in town around a phase 2 grant that we received from the DoD.
Sure.
So Office of Economic Adjustment, once again, came through with this grant to Pikes Peak Community College, and our partnership will continue with them over the next year and a half or so as we look to implement these actions.
Well, certainly listening to you as a citizen of Colorado Springs, I appreciate your role being very courteous to other cities and also very humble. But you've done some great work, Vince, here, and it's clear, and we're seeing the ongoing benefits. But what I will say to those out there that are aspiring to be cybersecurity hubs, hopefully you can get Pikes Peak established in your city and have a 70-degree day here in April like we're having with almost no humidity. Let's take a quick moment and go check in with our sponsors.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
And we're back here at the new Cyber Frontier. Our guest, Vinnie Persichetti. So you were just talking about and kind of telegraphing what's to come with Phase 2. Any tie-up points on Phase 1, or you want to jump right into kind of what Phase 2 is going to be all about with that grant?
Sure, let's talk about Phase 2.
All right, awesome.
So one of the first actions that we've already undertaken is to establish a cybersecurity coordinating committee. This coordinating committee would be a broad representation of efforts that are happening across the city, not just specifically the technical cybersecurity workforce.
Right.
So there's tie-ins to academia, there's tie-ins to industry, certainly with city governments, accelerators and community involvement. So we've got a number of participants who are focused on different pieces of that puzzle as we look to put it all together.
So in talking about the types of organizations in these committees, this coordinating committee, you talked about academia, you talked about accelerators. If there are listeners out there that might be sort of part of this subset of the ecosystem, what types of entities, particularly the accelerator? Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So our committee participant really in that vein is Hannah Parsons.
Okay.
She's the CEO of Exponential Impact.
Excellent.
Which is affiliated with the National Cybersecurity Center here in Colorado Springs. They are going to be launching they're just starting into their second cohort this summer with a very interesting focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cybersecurity.
Excellent.
So blockchain as well.
Sure.
So met with Ethan over at the Exponential Impact yesterday with a group from the Netherlands that was in town. Just wanted to hear more about that accelerator, and they're excited about some of the international partnerships that could be formed. And that's what we're starting to see in this town is a lot more of international visitors wanting to partner in the interesting things that are happening across the city related to cybersecurity.
Ja, spreekt Nederlands here in Colorado Springs. Welcome.
Very nice.
Now, you talked about Exponential Impact. If I'm not mistaken, both Exponential Impact and the NCC are both nonprofit entities, correct?
That is correct. They are both nonprofits.
What a great sort of, and similar to what you've shared in terms of your vision to be part of a nonprofit that was advancing this cause, having an accelerator that's really accelerating businesses, yet from a nonprofit perspective, probably some shared philosophy and emphasis, I would imagine.
Absolutely, and being that they are a nonprofit, not being tied to that bottom line profit focus as some accelerator programs are, it certainly gives them some flexibility in the teams that they're able to accept in their cohort. They're also a member of GAN, which is the Global Accelerator Network, which ties them in across, not just across the nation, but really internationally to accelerator programs. It gives them a fantastic network to talk about what they're doing here, their holistic approach to the accelerator model, and not just focused on the business model, the business plan.
Well, in our cybersecurity ecosystem, is becoming more and more conducive to these, dare I say, mom and pop cybersecurity entities. And I don't mean that in the least as a derogatory term. In fact, I embrace that concept of small business and cybersecurity and their ability to jump forward, and I hope to see more. And to listeners out there, I'm sure that there are many of you that are entrepreneurially minded, and so being aware that such concepts exist, I think is sort of a great inspiration for them. So going back to the coordinating committee, we talked about academia, accelerator. What is their charter right now? What are they going to get knocked out?
So we as a coordinating committee are focused on that strategic plan. So we break it down amongst those members, how it ties into those different entities across the city. One of those things, like initially establishing that coordinating committee was the first action in that strategic plan.
Yeah.
We moved from there into developing a brand strategy.
Okay.
So when we talk about a brand strategy, it's what do we as Colorado Springs want to be known for when it comes to cybersecurity? What is that special vein that we want to fill on a national level? So when someone thinks about a specialized field of cybersecurity, they think, well, that's Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So we're working with the National Cybersecurity Center as the lead for that piece. There are certainly some promising areas that we're focused on. One of those could be a lot of the work that's being done in blockchain around the city.
Right.
It could be the workforce development initiatives that are very robust in Colorado Springs, all the way from the K through 12 space, through training programs like Secure Set, to the academic programs that we have at Pikes Peak Community College, University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, Colorado Technical University, Regis University, and so on. And I'm mentioning those universities for a reason. They're all certified as centers of academic excellence in cyber by the National Security Agency, which is fantastic for one city to have so much representation amongst universities with that designation.
Yeah, high density per capita for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
And so what's next?
So one of our biggest areas of focus this summer will be assisting defense companies to diversify.
Right.
As we did our research over the last year, we found that a majority of the companies that are focused in cybersecurity with the defense sector are very heavily reliant on those DoD contracts, on those government contracts, to the point where the majority of their income is coming from those contracts, oftentimes more than 75%. So we recognize that eventually there could be a downturn in defense spending.
Yeah.
Not could be, will be. And we want to be able to position this city to weather that storm when it happens, so that we don't see companies folding because of their reliance on DoD contracts. So one of those initiatives, assisting defense companies to diversify, will be focused on evaluating what it is that they offer, whether that's a cyber tool, a program, people see where their specialization lies, and help them identify commercial markets where they could expand, or even look across the DoD and government at other opportunities that they may not have yet exploited.
Sure.
So
sure.
it's the diversity and agility.
And that's a reality that we all deal with in a DoD centric town. We welcome the opportunity to be partners with the DoD, but that greater reality that you've mentioned, there's always opportunity for change. Sometimes it's not always kind to the contract holder, and I really appreciate that vision. How do we sustain or sort of build into that? Is that a changing of mindset, of paradigm? Is it a solution set that includes more than that?
Great question. So certainly there is some changing of mindset, because a lot of these companies that are focused in the DoD are as a result of individuals that have come up through the military or government service.
I don't know anybody like that.
There's a few in this town.
Yeah.
And thank God for that.
Yes, here.
But it is a change of mindset, because they've been focused their entire lives on their entire adult lives on working with the DoD and really working for a larger purpose in the defense of our nation.
Yeah.
So it is helping them identify that there are commercial opportunities out there to market their goods and services.
Sure.
That are very beneficial, because cybersecurity in the commercial sector is that's a demand that's only going to grow exponentially over the coming years.
I think in every way, too, a strong cybersecurity effort and ecosystem in the commercial sector can only help and benefit the DoD component and mission as well. I think that there's a shared strength,
Exactly,
and they can still benefit one another. It's not a competition or a poaching or anything like that. For sure. Yeah.
And as we see accelerator programs like we have in town with Exponential Impact, and there's another Catalyst campus that I didn't mention,
On the space side,
on the space side specifically focused commercially and on defense, but those accelerator programs bring some very innovative technologies to Colorado Springs, and it's wonderful to have opportunities to help some of the defense companies diversify, because you're seeing some of those disruptive technologies really starting to take hold in the city to the point where there's room for expansion and growth.
Sure.
You think about the National Cybersecurity Center launching a space ISAC. This was just mentioned, just announced 2 weeks ago at the Space Symposium, and it will be headquartered here in Colorado Springs. This is an international ISAC. It'll be the 22nd ISAC that's been established in the United States.
Sure.
And their focus, their partnership on both the military and commercial side will be truly instrumental to where we see the National Cybersecurity Center growing and developing their capabilities over the coming years.
And that's literally co-located with the National Cybersecurity Center, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Correct. And as I understand with the administration now, Vice President Pence kind of has, I think he's been kind of designated by the president to kind of shepherd some of this focus on space, and so he'll have some attention on this very city, I presume.
Most definitely, and he was so this was a White House initiative to establish this space ISAC, and Vice President Pence played a huge role in that.
Excellent.
Kratos was the founding sponsor.
Sure.
And that's a big reason why it ended up here in Colorado Springs. Other than we are the epicenter of space. So
yeah, and you know, it's stunning here. As a hometown kid, grew up here. Went away, joined the Navy, and saw the world. And I come home, and I had not understood to the extent to which space really resides in even this Denver Colorado Springs corridor. It's pretty profound, and with Space Command likely being reestablished here, and
we hope.
Say again.
We hope.
Yeah, that's why I say likely, because anything that I can do to help. But and then also just discussion of the Space Force and just the greater emphasis and recognition on its impact. But clearly, any industry really is inseparable from the basic tenets of cybersecurity and our vision.
Right. When you talk about the cybersecurity community and those 125 companies, that's a subset of a larger aerospace and defense industry in Colorado Springs that consists of over 240 companies. Yeah. So it's quite a fascinating business model when you look at what's happening in this area. And it's not just Colorado Springs; it extends all along the Front Range up through Denver to Boulder. Yeah. Yeah. Just a lot of just amazing and innovative undertakings related to space and cyber.
Well, and it's a good time too in America to have such a dynamic concept such as this to really crystallize industry, defense, space, government, all of us together for something that's really exciting, really going to be establishing a lot of hope for the future, for sure.
Definitely.
So once phase 2 is kind of implemented, what does that look like? What would be the vision once phase 2 has been successfully kind of passed through?
So interestingly enough, our position at the Chamber in cybersecurity is tied to this grant.
Yeah.
So we are working long term on what do we need to do to plan for a permanent cybersecurity position once the grant goes away. How do we sustain the momentum and the growth and continue to represent that community from a chamber, from an economic development standpoint. So that's a discussion that we're having internally. As we go through phase 2, as I mentioned, we're partnered with Pikes Peak Community College, and they are focused in several areas of this grant as well, such as launching a developer boot camp. So they They're looking this summer to announce a boot camp focused on secure coding. So I think that's a underrepresented talent in this town,
Definitely.
and really not just in this town, across the country. We need more secure developers, and a boot camp like this fills not just a niche but a great need for the city.
Indeed.
They're also working to launch an apprenticeship program in cybersecurity, and this is not just something that they've come up with. This is a Department of Labor apprenticeship program, certified apprenticeship program. So the model is in place. It's just a matter of bringing it into Colorado Springs and getting it underway. And I think that will tie very nicely into some of the internship programs that are occurring across the city with relation to the different universities that have that type of undertaking. Then they're also looking to expand upon what they've created in their 2-year technical degree in cybersecurity to execute what they call their training assessment strategy, to find out what type of perhaps non-credit related training is needed by local industry, and some of that might be certificate or certification based.
Sure.
So they are focused on expanding that offering within the city as well.
And clearly that effort will be greatly supported by a community effort, and I think we've got the right people, the right hope, and truly just to toot your horn, the right leadership on our chamber in that regard. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Abe Thompson. I'm here at the SecureSet Studios here in Colorado Springs on the new Cyber Frontier. I've had the privilege of having Vinnie Persichetti, the Director of Cybersecurity Programs at our Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and EDC. Vincent, I just want to thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate the invitation. It's been a blast. I look forward to our continued partnership into the future. Indeed,
always a privilege to talk with you, my friend. All right, folks out there in podcast land, have a good day. And like I said, come on and visit us here in Colorado Springs. The weather is fine. This is Abe Thompson with the new Cyber Frontier.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.